A man with a fake badge put a blade to my wife's throat. He gave me 1 minute to decide his fate. 60 seconds. That's all the time I had. 60 seconds with a hunting knife pressed against my wife's neck, his arm locked like a vice around her shoulders, his breath hot in her ear as he muttered about neighborhood character, as if those words justified violence. My wife didn't scream. She was utterly still, hands suspended in the air, eyes wide, the terrible stillness of an animal that knows any movement could be its last. "This community has expectations," he said, his voice eerily calm as if discussing the weather, "and your family doesn't meet them." I could see the tremor in his hand, not from fear, but from a sickening thrill, the kind that comes when a costume makes a coward feel like a king. His black vest read HOA Security in cheap white letters. No real badge, no actual authority, just a prop, a knife, and a monstrous sense of entitlement. I raised my hand slowly, my voice a forced calm, bargaining for seconds I didn't have. "You need to let her go, right now." He smiled. "Or what?" "To understand how we got here, to a quiet cul-de-sac with a blade at my wife's throat, you need the history. My name is Eli. I spent 8 years in the military. I moved here for peace. I wanted a place where my wife, Maya, could paint on the porch without judgment, and I could finally leave the constant vigilance behind. That peace lasted about 10 months. That's when the HOA president, Deborah, decided Maya disrupted the visual harmony. It began with sideways glances, comments about her bohemian style, whispers that she wasn't neighborly enough. Then came the anonymous notes about maintaining standards. We weren't even in the HOA. Our property line, documented with the county, placed us clearly outside their jurisdiction. But Deborah didn't care about maps. She cared about conformity. She told us we'd be absorbed soon. She said it was easier to just cooperate. We refused. Then the visits started. Official warnings at our gate, strangers walking our fence line, and finally this, a hired man with a knife and a vest sent to deliver a final brutal message. Standing there, watching the steel gleam against Maya's skin, I understood with icy clarity. This wasn't a scare tactic anymore. This was an execution in progress, and my minute was almost up. I drew my pistol, my movements deliberate, arms locking into a stance muscle memory knew better than my racing heart. I raised the weapon, the sight settling on him. "Let her go!" The words cracked the silent street like thunder. Maya flinched when she saw the gun. I saw it, the subtle tightening of her shoulders, the hitched breath. She knew what that raised weapon meant. She knew I didn't make those promises lightly. The fake enforcer laughed, a dry, mocking sound. He pressed the knife harder, a thin crimson line appearing on her skin. He yanked her tighter against his chest, using her as a shield. "You won't shoot," he sneered. "You hit me, you risk her. You don't have the nerve." That's when I knew he wasn't playing. He believed he'd won. "Last warning," I yelled, my voice raw. "Drop the blade and step back." The seconds stretched, thick and silent. The world shrank to the pulse in Maya's throat, the terror in her eyes, the slight shake in his wrist as adrenaline began to betray his cool. Instead of surrendering, he leaned in, his lips nearly touching her ear. "This," he whispered, "is what happens to those who don't belong." That was it. I adjusted my stance, shifted my weight, and waited for the sliver of an opening. As he tensed to pull her back, I fired. The first round struck his upper back. His body jerked violently, his grip faltering for a fraction of a second. Maya cried out as his arm slackened. I fired again. The second shot drove him forward, his balance breaking. The knife clattered to the pavement. A third shot sent him collapsing to the ground behind her, gasping, dark blood spreading on the asphalt. Maya stumbled forward, free, and I rushed to catch her. I pulled her into my chest, my own hands trembling now, not from fear, but from the brutal crash after the storm. "It's over," I whispered into her ear. "I have you. You're safe." Behind us, the imposter groaned, trying to move. I kicked the knife far away, lowered my weapon, and grabbed my phone. 911, I need police and an ambulance. A man impersonating an officer just attacked my wife with a knife. Shots fired. Suspect is down. 5 minutes later, the first flicker of red and blue appeared down the road. I held Maya as she shook, staring at the man who thought a costume made him a god. He was still breathing, barely. As the sirens grew louder, one thing was certain: this nightmare was far from over. If you're gripped by this harrowing story of survival and severe consequence, ensure you're subscribed to Winds of Thought. The legal reckoning that follows is a lesson in ultimate justice. The police arrived with startling speed. I did what my training demanded. I placed my pistol on the ground, stepped back, and raised my hands. I kept one arm around Maya, who was shaking uncontrollably. "Shooter is me," I called out. "Weapon is secured. My wife is the victim. Suspect is down." Officers moved with sharp efficiency. One secured my gun. Another hurried to the bleeding man. A third officer gently guided Maya to the curb, his voice soft, while an EMT descended to check her neck. The fake security guard was alive, but fading. Medics cut away the vest that had been his disguise. An officer approached me. "Sir, I need your ID." I handed it over slowly. "You're the homeowner?" "Yes, that's my wife, and that man," I nodded toward the ambulance, "he's a trespasser with a knife. He has no authority here." The officer's expression hardened. Witnesses were already corroborating the story. Neighbors who'd heard the confrontation, a passing driver who'd stopped, a couple who'd filmed part of it on their phone. Every account matched. Knife, vest, threats. An officer held up the discarded vest with 2 fingers like it was something foul. "Says HOA security." "It's a costume," I replied. He gave a single grim nod. "That's what it looks like." The ambulance door slammed shut, its sirens wailing as it left with the suspect under guard. His rights were read to him in the back. He was no state to hear them. The evidence was damning on its own. The knife, the vest, the threatening notes found in his car, but the digital trail sealed it. That night, detectives uncovered the messages between him and Deborah. "Make them understand. Apply direct pressure. She doesn't fit in. Handle it." By dawn, Deborah was in custody. By the end of the week, charges were filed. The impersonator was charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and impersonating an officer. Deborah took a plea: 30 years plus a lifetime ban from holding any position in any homeowners association. Our home is quiet again, but some silences are heavier than others. Maya still startles at loud noises. I still watch the tree line sometimes. But we are here. We are alive. And that is how a man in a costume learned the definitive lesson. You don't get to decide who belongs, especially when you target someone protected by love, the law, and a promise to never stand down.